Derrick Rose was one of the most exciting young players in the history of the NBA. That is, until the injury.
Foot. See him holding onto his knee. Holding on to his knee and down.
But what if he had another chance? As in restarting his career in 2024 and this time playing it out injury-free. The players around him would be very different, but he'll still be joining the Chicago Bulls and have one more shot of bringing in a ring and a championship banner to his hometown. But of course, we were far from that being a possibility, because while Rose was instantly adding an offensive jump to his team, he'd find himself on the bench more often than not. Like I mentioned, his teammates would be very different from his original career, and this Bulls team had a plethora of great guards in their rotation that would be eating up Derrick's possible minutes. With that said, it was vital that he took full advantage of the moments where he did have an opportunity. With him scoring an impressive 17.4 points per game off the bench, paired with a just as notable 5.1 assists per game, there was no doubt that he was stepping up when his name was called. Even though the Rookie of the Year award would be out of reach and his team would struggle to even make the play-in, it was still a successful rookie year that resulted in some recognition. He's known for being the youngest MVP ever. Now in his second chance, he's the youngest sixth man ever. But can he get it done in the play-in? Unfortunately for him, Halliburton was in the way. He and the Pacers were playing their best ball of the year as they were heading into the postseason. It was a close matchup, but in the end, Indiana was outlasting Chicago. Rose wasn't able to do enough this year, but he would have a bigger role the next season.
From Chicago, at guard 6'3", number 1, Derrick Rose.
DeRozan had left Chicago in free agency, but it was a blessing for Rose. The Bulls will play a small ball lineup now that allowed Derrick to get the starting PG role. Overnight, Chicago went from a stagnant iso ball team to a young team with athletic pieces. The fast breaks with Rose and LaVine were exciting, and with Kobe White developing further, they had a legitimate young core. Rose's increase in minutes allowed his game to expand to an even higher level. He was continuing to build upon his successful rookie campaign and was continuing to draw the attention of fans.
Lead pass, Rose.
Derrick continued to fill up his highlight reel this season, and by no surprise, his averages were seeing an increase from his sixth man of the year averages the year prior. All of this was great for him personally, and the hype around his stellar play was growing more and more each day. But his team was still struggling, and they'd missed the playoffs yet again, with the doubters starting to talk.
I'm sorry.
What do you need?
I don't
What
buy.
do you need?
I don't buy the Bulls unless you can convince me it's just meant to be.
Many thought the narratives around Rose and the Bulls were unwarranted. There was a strong fandom forming around the story of the hometown kid and his electrifying style of play, and everybody just wanted to see him succeed. Although being a fan favorite wasn't going to be taking Chicago to a deep playoff run. While Rose would go on to make his first All-Star game of his career, his team was still struggling. Outside of LaVine and Kobe White, the supporting cast were awful. Vucevic was old and being destroyed down low, and given significant minutes to Dalen Terry had nightmare written all over it. The struggles continued for Rose, and with those troubles, even some of his fans were beginning to turn against him. Another failed season yet again. The only good news is Vucevic and LaVine's terrible contracts do expire this offseason, so maybe Derrick Rose can get some solid help in free agency. Thankfully, Chicago was getting a massive improvement at center. Kessler was the defensive anchor that the team needed to change their culture and bring that strong intensity back to the city of Chicago. While LaVine was retained with his player option of $40 million, the team was still vastly improved. Not to take away from Vucevic, but the younger Kessler was a much better pick-and-roll partner to pair with D. Rose. With his new big man by his side, Rose was flourishing at peak levels, and it seemed like his potential was endless after yet another impressive leap in his averages. It would seem all he was missing was some hard screens to be selected to the All-NBA first team. The new look Bulls certainly weren't perfect yet, but it was finally enough to have a winning record. And now in the playoffs, they would be up against the Pacers yet again. This series was bound to push D. Rose to his limits. Just the year prior, the Indiana Pacers were the team winning a championship. So now with Halliburton hoping to repeat, this will prove if the new look Bulls were frauds or the real deal. And speaking of the real deal, we have to talk about today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, the easiest place to play fantasy sports. Their pick'em game is super simple, and you can win big cash while watching your favorite players. You put your ball knowledge to the test by choosing between 2 to 5 players and predict that their stats will be higher or lower, and if you get your pick'em entry right, you can multiply your money exponentially. And I would know because I just won my most recent pick'em entry. And the best part is, when you use code Allen while signing up at UnderdogFantasy.com or via the App Store, you'll get your first deposit doubled up to $100 plus a new customer pick'em special. So let's paint a picture of how it all works. Normally you would choose a real life match, but for this example, we'll use game 1 of our sim, and we're gonna place a $40 pick'em entry on the higher for both Rose and Halliburton's points. And while the Bulls would be far too much for Halliburton in a game 1 loss, both he and Rose were clashing head to head, matching every bucket, and in the end, they both end up scoring over 30 points. And just like that, you would have won $120. So check if Underdog is available in your area and sign up with code Allen so you can get in on the action just in time for the NBA playoffs. Big thanks to Underdog for sponsoring this video. Now let's get into game 2 of the playoffs. After the game 1 heroics, Rose was continuing to carry his team on the road versus the Pacers. It was another huge performance where Derek was elevating his game far beyond his typical regular season averages. The hype was real and playoff Rose seemed to be a real thing as the mantra was starting to trend. Rose was tearing apart whatever the Pacers threw at him, and his performance was enough to get a second win, and the naysayers were becoming supporters.
He was as explosive as ever and played with a confidence.
Chicago is a threat. There is no question about it.
However, Indiana didn't become champions by pure luck. They were prepared to fight back in the face of adversity, and one by one, game by game, they were retaliating against Chicago while slowly getting back into the series, and the Bulls' inexperience started to swell. Following game 2, the next 4 games, the Pacers regained complete control, and in the end, they were winning the series after 6. But for Rose, he was walking away with his head high, ready to prepare for the next year. After finally having a taste of the playoffs, an obsession for winning started to form in D Rose. In the offseason, he was putting in the work to advance to another level, and his confidence was clearly at an all-time high.
Why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league? Why can't I be the best player in the league? I don't see why.
While the world thought he was crazy to set his goals so high, he was playing in a way that would quickly halt their doubts. This season was a whole new level for D Rose, who looked to be unstoppable. Chicago moved past Levine and opted to sign some very talented shooters to surround Derek. With so much space all around him, Rose had the entire paint to himself, and with his immaculate finishing abilities, it was unlikely opposing defenses were going to stop him. The fruits of his labor were ripe because he was not only averaging a career high in points per game, but he was leading the entire NBA in scoring this season. Additionally, he was a full-fledged point guard and was second in the league in assists per game, only behind Doncic. Even his defense was impressive this year as he was 5th in steals for the season, which led to a lot of fast breaks. With these mind-boggling numbers, you'd expect him to be a lock for the MVP, but Luka Doncic? Come on, man. He's already got like 5 MVPs. Rose definitely got robbed. He may have come up short of the MVP, but his team had their best record in years, and that's what really mattered. Up until now, Rose has had 0 success in the playoffs after losing to the Pacers in his only postseason appearances. But this year's Rose and the Bulls were going to be different. To open up this year's playoffs, Derek was facing off against the Philadelphia 76ers. They had a great center protecting their paint, but here in 2028, Embiid was already old and a shell of his former self. Rose continued his typical playstyle of exploding to the paint and detonating at the rim with reckless abandon. There was nothing that was going to stop Derek in his quest for success this year. He may have struggled to find team success up to this point, but that all ends now. This series was the furthest thing from close and would end up in a sweep for the first Bulls playoff win in years. We have to pause this in for a second. As I'm seeing the Bulls win this playoff series, I just realized they have not won a playoff series since 2015 with Derrick Rose still on the team. And it took this sim over 10 years later, Derrick Rose back on the team for them to finally win another series. Life as a Bulls fan is depressing. Can we please get a like on this video to help make me feel better? But my depression as a Bulls fan had plenty of opportunity to finally be healing because Rose was continuing to punish any team in his way. He was facing the Brooklyn Nets, led by this year's MVP, Luka Doncic, but that didn't matter. If anything, he let that fuel him and used this matchup as a statement to say it should have been him winning the MVP. This series wasn't going to be as close as the first round against the Sixers, but it was another success story for Derrick Rose. This time he was coming out on top after 6, and the media couldn't wait to cover the story on how quickly the Bulls have turned things around. Now the conference finals offered a matchup that was beginning to look like a rivalry. We've seen this a few times by now, and we all know this is a PG matchup between Rose and Halliburton. The first game, the two were in what appeared to be a scoring competition. They were going basket for basket, and it didn't look like either of them was going to be slowing down anytime soon. Rose would finish with an impressive 36-point double-double, and even though Halliburton was just as spectacular, the Bulls were able to squeeze by with the win. The second game of the series was just as competitive as the first was. The two stars were continuing their epic duel, and there was a lot at stake. If the Bulls win, they take a commanding 2-0 series lead. But if the Pacers come out on top, they tie this thing back up before heading on the road. As we saw in game 1, this match was just as close, and with a timeout for one final possession, Rose had a chance to write his own story. With just about 6 seconds remaining in this game, there is just enough time for Rose to get a decent look, prove his worth. Prove he should have been the MVP. They throw it to Williams in the corner. Kobe White is wide open. His leg. Oh my God. Kobe White, the putback. The putback. They take a 1-point lead. I'm actually hyped. Oh my God. I guess the Pacers have enough time to maybe tap it. I thought the ball was going to go to Derrick Rose. That was a good play, though. That was a good play. They got to go for that alley-oop. They don't have time for a jump shot. They have to throw something up. That doesn't count. That does not count. The Bulls are going up 2-0. You'd expect there to be excitement for Chicago, but after blowing a 2-0 lead last year, they were all business now. Taking things back to the Windy City, everyone was firing on all cylinders. Rose was still dominating, but now he was getting his team involved a lot. They were playing the highest level of team ball possible, and everyone was involved. But I'm not sure that was the right choice. Because while you may think playing as a team on fire would get this series wrapped up, it would actually be doing the opposite. It really could be happening again. The Pacers were grinding their way back into this to flip the tables on Chicago, and their team was just as hot, if not more. Tyrese and his team were taking full advantage and quickly got this situation under control to take a 3-2 lead. All until game 6 came around and Rose flipped a switch. He was no longer incorporating all of his team. He was fully on the attack himself, and it reminded everyone yet again why he was one of the league's top guys. Now this thing was all tied up for a final match. Game 7 was now taking place in Indiana, and the first 6 games were all within 6 points, and this was no different. Halliburton and Rose continued in the final 48-minute matchup to clash with one another back and forth. Neither player was letting up, and we'd have another close game for Rose to possibly prove his greatness. We find ourselves in another close game here with the Pacers and the Bulls. This time there was a game 7, and the Chicago Bulls are down by 2 with 40 seconds remaining. Derrick Rose has it. Desmond Bane on him. He's getting the screen from Kessler. Rose got the whole right side to himself. One-on-one. He's isoing, sizing him up. Derrick Rose, 8 seconds left in the shot clock. He's making his move. He's driving it in. He's created space. That layup's definitely good. Oh, with 24 seconds left, I'm a little bit worried. For the sim's sake, I'm worried because the Pacers are a good team. For reality's sake, these AIs make like everything in the clutch on 2K24. I don't know what it is. We have 15 seconds left, though. Halliburton is here at the top. Derrick Rose is guarding him. The entire arena is watching this moment. Hallie is waiting for the shot clock to wind down. 6 seconds left. He's got to make his move. Derrick Rose gets screened. Halliburton, nowhere to go. Rose is all over him. He's got to pull a deep 3. It's off. We're headed to an overtime in game 7. Chicago fought hard. They got a game 7 in the conference finals, 2 overtime on the road, but came up just a little bit short here. They're down by 7, 16 seconds left. There is not enough time. The Bulls are losing. Really can't be mad at Rose, though. He averaged 35 and 12 in the conference finals with 2 steals a night as well. He had 36 in a game 7. I don't know what more he could do, and I don't know if they're going to make it any farther next season, but I guess all we have to do is wait and see. Moving past the loss in the conference finals, the Bulls were eager to get right back to it for another try. In the offseason, they didn't have any massive signings of free agents, but they did add some great role players to the mix. They had some of the NBA's best defenders, and it was a major part of them being the top-rated defense. Rose and teammate Dyson Daniel were the 2 leaders in steals per game, and Kessler was only second to Wemby in blocks per night. This created a lot of opportunities on the offensive end for fast breaks, and as we all know, Rose's game thrived the most during the break. His points per game average took another step forward, in part to the frequent fast breaks, but more importantly due to the fact he was nearly in the 50-40-90 club. 3-point shooting was no longer a weakness of his, and in fact it was becoming a strength. By the end of the year, Rose was concluding arguably his best season of his career and was finally getting a trophy for the first time in years. No, it was not MVP. Luka somehow stole that again, but he did get clutch player of the year, and I mean that's kind of cool, but come on man, these numbers should have been MVP worthy. He's just gonna have to prove himself in the playoffs. Kicking things off in round 1, the Raptors were a literal freebie for Rose and the Bulls. For some reason unknown, they were starting 33-year-old Kyle Kuzma at center. Needless to say, this wasn't stopping a prime Derrick Rose who would have his career-high playoff averages in a sweep. And it seemed like the planets were aligning for Rose this year, because in the second round, he ended up facing the 8th seed Magic, who just upset the MVP Luka Doncic in round 1. This was another round that Rose had very little issues with, and as the conference finals approached and Rose's alleged kryptonite Pacers weren't there, it would seem this could be special. You'd expect this matchup with Cleveland to be more challenging with 2 great big men packing the paint, but at this point in his career, his game had evolved so much past simply slashing to the paint. He has grown into a complete player, and this postseason run was a sort of nod towards that. The culmination of all his work was on display here. Every round required a different skill set from him, and every round he provided. He was coming out of this series being crowned the Eastern Conference champion and 1 round away from a ring. All right, I'll be honest, it does look like a pretty fraudulent run. They beat the Raptors with Kyle Kuzma at center round 1. Round 2, they beat the 8th seeded Magic. And in the conference finals, they beat the 7th seeded Cavaliers. But hey, a run is a run, and Rose has a chance to win a ring. But with the finals being against the 7th seeded Lakers, Chicago's luck seemed to have not run out just yet. Yeah, this Lakers team sucks. Without a doubt, this Derrick Rose run is going to get called fraudulent by the fans. Luckily, his team's good enough where he could try to win multiple. Somehow, this Lakers team beat the number 1 seeded Spurs led by Victor Wembanyama. They got a 36-year-old Anthony Davis. I don't think they're stopping Derrick Rose. After years of fighting his way to this moment and having huge matchups with the Pacers, it would be a little bittersweet to see the ring earned this way. It doesn't feel like there were really any hurdles to make this championship worth it. Rose and the Bulls literally walked straight to this point and decided that they were going to be winners. Like I predicted, the Lakers stood no chance. Their team just wasn't good enough. Derrick Rose is putting up some of the most impressive final averages of all time, and rightfully will be on his way to leading his team to the promised land. In Game 6, on their home floor, he and the Bulls were finally getting it done. They were hoisting the trophy and winning their prize. They would celebrate with their ring ceremony, and while I'm sure Rose's career will continue to flourish, for now our sim is complete. We gave Rose a second chance, and he executed to do what he couldn't do in his career. But if you want to watch another player get a second chance, click this video next, where we give another athletic star a repeat.